You watch them sometimes, and you can see it. The tightness in their shoulders, the way they answer the phone, clipped, distracted, already somewhere else. The dinners that get canceled, the visits that feel rushed, the conversations that stay on the surface because neither of you has the energy to go deeper. Your adult child is stressed, deeply, chronically, visibly stressed, and you can see it. You've been seeing it for years. Not the kind of stress that comes and goes, the kind that has settled in, that has become the background noise of their life. And somewhere underneath all of that, you carry a quiet worry that never quite goes away. Are they okay? Am I doing enough? Is there something I should be doing differently? And sometimes, though you may not say it out loud, you wonder whether you are part of the problem. If any of that sounds familiar, you are in exactly the right place. And I want you to stay with me, because today we are going to talk honestly about what is happening in your adult child's life, why it is so much harder than you may realize, and 5 specific ways you can actually help, not just mean well, but genuinely help. Welcome to Family Bonds After 60. Before we get into the specifics, I want to say something that I think a lot of parents in your position need to hear. First, you are doing something important just by asking these questions. The fact that you are wondering whether you are helping, whether you are missing something, whether there is a better way to show up, that already puts you in a different category from parents who have stopped asking. The asking matters. It is where everything good begins. And second, you are not imagining it. Your adult child really is under a kind of pressure that is genuinely different from what you experienced at their age. Not because they are weaker, not because they were raised wrong, but because the world they are navigating has changed in ways that are real, significant, and often invisible to the people who love them most. Understanding that, really understanding it, not just knowing it intellectually, is the first and most important thing you can do, because everything else we talk about today flows from that understanding. So let's start there. When you were 35, what did stress look like for you? Maybe it was a demanding job, a mortgage, young children at home. Maybe there was financial pressure or the difficulty of balancing everything at once. That was real. That was hard. I am not dismissing any of it. But here is what your adult child is navigating that you probably weren't. They entered the workforce during or after one of the most economically destabilizing periods in modern history. Many of them started their careers during the financial crisis of 2008 or during the global disruption of 2020, or both. They came out of university with significant debt into a job market that was contracting. They have watched housing prices climb to levels that make ownership feel permanently out of reach. Many of them are doing the same jobs their parents did, but for salaries that don't stretch the same way, in cities that cost twice as much to live in. At the same time, they are raising children in an era that is far more anxious about parenting than any previous generation. The standards are higher, the information is more abundant and more contradictory. The comparison is constant. Every choice about sleep schedules and screen time and education and diet comes with an invisible audience and an invisible judgment. And they are doing all of this while being always connected and always reachable. The boundary between work and home, which was already permeable for many of their parents, has for most of them dissolved entirely. There is no commute that marks the end of the workday. There is no physical separation between professional obligations and personal life. The phone is always there. The emails are always coming. The mental load is never fully set down. Jim Burns, a parenting expert who has spent decades working with families, navigating the transition from parent of a child to parent of an adult, puts it well. He says, "Our kids are new at adulting, and we've never been the parents of adults. Everyone is in a new role." And the role of being an adult in the world today is genuinely harder than it was when we were doing it. This is not a complaint about your adult child's generation. It is not an excuse for difficulty. It is a fact. And when you hold it as a fact rather than a judgment, something in the way you see your adult child shifts. You move from wondering why they can't handle it better to understanding why handling it is as hard as it is. That context matters, because when you understand the conditions your adult child is operating under, you stop interpreting their stress as a character flaw. You stop wondering why they can't just handle it better. You start to see it for what it is, a reasonable response to an unreasonable amount of pressure. Here is the part that takes some honesty, and I say this not to make you feel bad. I say it because it is the most useful thing you can know. Many parents of stressed adult children are genuinely, sincerely trying to help, and some of what they do helps. But some of it, without any bad intention, makes things harder. Let's talk about why. When your adult child was small, your job was to solve their problems. That was appropriate. That was necessary. A child cannot navigate the world alone, and a good parent steps in, guides, protects, advises, fixes. But your adult child is not small anymore, and the parenting tools that worked then, the guidance, the advice, the fixing, can land very differently now. When you offer advice your adult child didn't ask for, what they often hear is not the wisdom you intended to give. What they hear is, "I don't think you can figure this out on your own." And for someone who is already under enormous pressure and already questioning their own competence, that message, even when it is delivered with love, adds weight rather than removing it. Jim Burns describes it this way: unsolicited advice is almost always received as criticism, not because the advice is bad, but because the act of offering it communicates a lack of trust in the other person's ability to handle their own life. Think about the last time someone gave you advice you didn't ask for. Even if the advice was correct, how did it feel? Did you feel supported? Or did you feel managed? Your adult child feels managed. And a managed person doesn't reach out for connection. They retreat. There is a second pattern that is worth naming honestly. Many parents, when they see their adult child struggling, move quickly toward solutions. They offer to call someone. They offer to pay for something. They offer a plan. All of this comes from genuine love. But what the adult child needed, often desperately, was simply to be heard, not fixed, not redirected, just heard. There is a significant difference between a parent who helps carry a burden and a parent who tries to remove it. The first feels like support. The second can feel like a message that the burden is too much, that you are too fragile to hold it, that you need to be rescued. And no adult child wants to feel like they need to be rescued by their parents. The third pattern is the one that is perhaps hardest to see, because it comes from the deepest place of love. It is what happens when a parent needs their adult child to be okay, more than the adult child needs to be okay. You know this feeling. When your child is struggling, you struggle. When they are in pain, you are in pain. And sometimes that pain can quietly, unconsciously begin to show up in the relationship as pressure, as an unspoken message. Please be okay, because I need you to be okay. But an adult child who feels that their parent cannot hold their pain without becoming destabilized by it will stop sharing that pain. They will protect you from the truth of their experience. And then the very thing you most want, real closeness, honest connection, becomes inaccessible, not because they don't love you, but because loving you means not burdening you. Now, let's talk about the 5 things that actually help. These are not complicated. Some of them will feel counterintuitive, but every single one of them is grounded in what adult children consistently say they wish their parents understood, not what parents assume their children need. what adult children actually say. This is the hardest shift of all, and it is the foundation of everything else. Your role as a parent was once to guide, teach, protect, and solve. That role made sense when your child was small, but your adult child doesn't need a parent in that sense anymore. What they need, and what will make the most difference in your relationship, is a mentor, a witness, someone who is interested in their life without needing to manage it. Jim Burns describes this shift as moving from being a controller to being a coach. But I would take it even further. The most useful thing a parent can be to their stressed adult child is not a coach, because coaches give instructions and evaluate performance. It is a witness, someone who sees them, who is genuinely curious about their experience, who can sit with them in the difficulty without needing it to resolve. This requires letting go of something that has been central to your identity as a parent for decades. The belief that your job is to make things better. Your job now is not to make things better. Your job is to make them feel less alone. That shift from fixer to witness changes everything about how you show up. It changes what you say. It changes what you don't say. It changes what your adult child feels in your presence. And slowly, over time, it changes whether they want to be in your presence. This does not mean becoming passive. It does not mean pretending you have no perspective. It means choosing, in any given moment, to prioritize their experience over your need to contribute to it. That is an act of love. One of the more demanding ones available to a parent. This one is simple in principle and genuinely difficult in practice. When your adult child shares something hard, a problem at work, a worry about money, a difficulty in their marriage, your instinct is to help, to offer what you know, to share what worked for you. That instinct is loving, but it is almost always the wrong move, unless they have asked for it. The question that changes everything is this: do you want my perspective on this, or do you just need me to listen? That question does several things at once. It communicates that you are capable of just listening, which is not a small thing. It gives them control over the shape of the conversation, and it removes the pressure they may have felt to be polite about advice they didn't want. Sometimes they will say, "Actually, yes, I'd love to hear your perspective," and then you can give it, and it will land completely differently than it would have if you had offered it unsolicited, because they chose to receive it. They invited it in, and an invited perspective is not criticism. It is counsel from someone they trust. Jim Burns tells a story about sitting in his kitchen while his daughter and her husband argued about how to handle a move to Texas. He had a better idea. He asked permission to share it. His daughter said, "Not now, Dad," and he walked away. Later, after things went wrong in exactly the way he had foreseen, she came back and asked, "What was your idea?" And he got to give it, at exactly the moment it could actually land. That story is about patience and timing and the discipline of holding your advice until it is wanted. But what it is really about is respect. Treating your adult child as someone who is capable of asking for what they need. This is the emotional skill that makes the most difference and the one that takes the most practice. When your adult child shares something painful, when they tell you they are exhausted or worried or overwhelmed, your nervous system responds. You feel it with them. You want to make it stop. And sometimes that wanting it to stop gets transmitted back to them in subtle ways. The slight tension in your voice, the hurrying toward reassurance, the change of subject, the suggestion of solutions. All of these are signals that their pain is too much for you. And when your adult child senses that their pain is too much for you, they will stop sharing it. The skill you are developing here is the ability to be present with their difficulty without being destabilized by it, to hear that they are struggling, and to respond not with panic or problem solving, but with something like, "That sounds really hard. Tell me more. A therapist who works with young adults describes anxiety in her clients this way. The ones who have the hardest time are often the ones who feel most unsupported, not because their parents don't care, but because their parents cannot tolerate their pain. When a parent needs their child to be okay, the child learns to perform okayness, and the performance is exhausting. What your adult child needs is not your reassurance that everything will be fine. They need to know that you can hold the truth of their experience without falling apart, that you are strong enough to witness their struggle, that they don't have to edit themselves for your benefit. This is one of the most mature things a parent can offer their adult child, and it is also one of the rarest. Most people, even loving, well-meaning people, find it very difficult to sit with someone else's pain without trying to move it somewhere, without trying to reframe it, minimize it, or resolve it. Learning to simply stay with it without agenda is a practice, and it begins with the next conversation. That is what unconditional presence looks like. Not agreement with everything, not pretending the difficulty isn't real, just, I am here, I can hold this, tell me. You were raised in a different era. Your adult child was raised in a different one. And the gap between those two eras is larger than any previous generational divide in history. The world your adult child is navigating, economically, technologically, socially, is genuinely unfamiliar territory. And one of the most loving things you can do is make a sincere effort to understand it. Not to agree with everything, not to abandon your own values or perspective, but to actually learn what their daily experience is like. What does it mean to work in an environment where you are always reachable? What is it like to raise children in an era of relentless comparison and information overload? What does financial stress feel like when home ownership feels permanently out of reach? What is it like to be the first generation to navigate the full weight of social media's psychological effects? Jim Burns calls this becoming a student of their culture. He says, "Our kids are living in the millennial and Gen Z world. They think differently, they act differently. And today, many of us are asking, who is this kid? And why are they growing up so slowly?" But the question we should be asking is, what is it actually like to be them right now? When you ask that question, genuinely, with curiosity, without judgment, something shifts. Your adult child stops feeling like they need to explain themselves. They stop anticipating misunderstanding. They start to feel like they are talking to someone who actually gets it, or is at least trying to. And that feeling of being genuinely known is one of the most powerful things one human being can offer another. Becoming a student of their world doesn't require you to agree with everything they believe. It requires you to be genuinely interested in understanding their experience. That is different, and it is entirely within your reach. This is the simplest one, and in some ways the most profound. Your adult child's life is full of uncertainty, financial uncertainty, professional uncertainty, the deep uncertainty of raising children in a world that feels less stable than the one they grew up in. They are managing more variables with less margin for error than most previous generations. What they need from you is not more advice, not more solutions, not more worry communicated in their direction. What they need is to know that there is one place in their life where the ground is solid, where they don't have to perform, where they don't have to have it together, where they can be imperfect and still be completely welcome. That place is you. Being the steady place means a few specific things. It means responding to their difficult moments without alarm. It means not making your emotional state contingent on their choices. It means not adding to the noise, not calling to express your worry, not forwarding articles about their problems, not asking pointed questions that are actually expressions of concern, wearing the disguise of curiosity. It means being, as one family therapist put it, the person they can call when everything is falling apart, and know that they will not have to manage your reaction on top of managing their own. This is not passivity. It is not pretending everything is fine. It is the active, deliberate choice to be a regulated, grounded, genuinely welcoming presence in your adult child's life. To be the kind of parent they want to come home to, not because coming home is easy, but because it is safe. That kind of safety, built slowly, over time, through consistent warmth and consistent absence of judgment, is one of the greatest gifts one generation can give to another, and it is entirely within your power to build it. I want to close with something that Jim Burns said that I have not been able to stop thinking about since I first heard it. He said, "Do they know you still love them? Not approve of every choice, not agree with every decision. Love them. Do they know that you are on their side, unconditionally, regardless of how their life looks from the outside?" That question is the heart of everything we have talked about today. Because your adult child's stress is real. Their overwhelm is real. Their need for support is real. And you cannot take that stress away. You cannot carry it for them. You cannot fix the world they are living in, but you can be someone they don't have to be okay for. Someone who sees the full truth of their life and loves them anyway. Someone who asks before advising, who listens before solving, who stays curious instead of anxious, who is steady when everything else is moving. That is the parent your adult child needs right now. Not a parent who has all the answers. A parent who can be present without needing to fix. You can be that. And starting today, in your very next conversation, your very next phone call, your very next moment with them, you can begin. It will not always go perfectly. There will be moments when the old instincts kick in, and you offer the advice before they asked for it, or you express the worry before you caught it. That is okay. What matters is not perfection. What matters is the direction you are moving, the intention behind the effort, and the willingness to keep trying. This has been Family Bonds After 60. Take care of yourself, and remember, the love you show up with, consistently, over time, is the thing they will carry with them long after this season of stress has passed.